Hi there, I'm Celeste Davis. I'm a working actor, voiceover actor, and comedian.
Hi, I'm Meredith Johnson. I'm a CEO of a recruiting firm.
So, welcome to Ladies on a Roll. So, today's topic, we're going to talk about that TV show Growing Pains. You remember Growing Pains, Meredith?
I sure do, Celeste.
Show me that smile again.
Show me that smile.
Don't waste another minute on your crying.
I loved it growing up as a kid.
Oh, it was a really fun show. It aired for about 7 years, from 1985 to 1992. It was a show about the Seaver family, and just like all stereotypical 1980s sitcoms with families in it, they had their own share of problems, chaos, and jokes that always ensued. For those who don't know anything about the show, it was a show about Dr. Jason Seaver, who was a psychiatrist who worked from his home because his wife, Maggie, had to go back to work as a reporter. Jason had to take care of the kids. So that was the premise of the show. And back in the 80s, it was absolutely unheard of for men to take care of kids. The fact that it's a sitcom that a man was taking care of a kids back in the 80s was just like a huge deal. Like, oh my God, isn't that so funny?
But I have to say that I really think that it kind of paved the way for our gender roles to kind of be reversed, right? Especially during that time, we had who's the boss, who was a man, who was a maid. And having him being at home with the kids as a psychologist, a therapist, and staying home, I thought it was, when I remember watching this going out, this is not how it's supposed to be. The man's supposed to go away and the woman's supposed to stay home. So I was just enthralled with this 80s sitcom and all the craziness of these kids that I can totally relate to one of the characters, you know, the daughter on the show.
Oh,
and
really?
I could, yes, definitely relate to her because she was very anal, straight A student.
Yeah.
Had to get all her work done, never had time for anything socially.
Was that you?
Yes, that was me. That was me growing up.
So what were you like in high school then? Were you that brainiac kid?
I was active in high school, but I was really serious, always serious about my future. And Carol Seaver was always so thinking about, what am I going to do? And she's yipping yapping at Mike Seaver because Mike's wanting to play around.
Yeah.
She wanted to just really concentrate on her schooling. So I could really relate to her.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you date all the hot people in school? Because she totally dated the hot people in school. I mean, the show has like a whole list of celebrities like Brad Pitt.
Oh my gosh, there's so many celebrities on the show. Yes. Yeah. No, you know what? I didn't date a lot in high school because I was so focused in on school itself.
Wow.
Because I knew that I needed to get this studying in. So I didn't really have time. I was kind of a nerd, yet played guitar and stuff. So I was very into music, but I was a big nerd, just like that character on there. So
oh my gosh.
I just remember, I think it was on Wednesday nights at 8:00 or 8:30.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes. I don't remember what network it was on, but I was so excited to watch
ABC.
that show. Yeah.
It was ABC. So it's owned by Disney now. You know, that's interesting that you say that because how old were you when the show aired? It was about 1985. So how old were you?
I was 13.
13. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I was young.
You're a couple of years younger than me.
Yeah.
So in 1985, I would have been like 16, 17. And my dad was my only parent at the time. My parents were divorced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to me, when I saw it, I was just like, you know, this isn't abnormal to me because my father is taking care of me and everything seems to be fine. The only thing I probably didn't understand about this show was how nice and kind, and there was no one yelling at the top of their lungs when you did things wrong. And I've admitted this to you before. I didn't quite have a TV growing up. About this
I can't believe that you did not have a TV growing up, girl. Who didn't have a TV?
This person.
Why didn't you have? Okay, we have to segue. Why didn't you have a TV growing up?
Because my mom didn't. And this is a quote. My mom didn't want the idiot box influencing us.
And now you're in TV. So she's like swallowing her words, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. But I did theater when I was young too. I did singing and dancing and all that kind of stuff when I was young. So that wasn't a big deal. I did have access to TV. So I did watch some TV. So I will say that. And I don't want to get too sidetracked on the fact that I didn't have TV. But by the time I think when my parents divorced, my dad got a color TV. Now, to some of those listeners out there, a color TV doesn't sound like anything of a big deal, but back then it was. You either had a black and white TV or you had a color TV, and color TVs were a really, really big deal.
And they were really expensive
and heavy.
I remember going to Sears and my parents buying a TV, and it was at least $800, and it was just a 19-inch TV. I mean, I have 3 monitors on my desk.
Oh my God,
the size of the TV we had.
Yeah. And the same thing with us. And I'm sorry that we're sidetracking a little bit here, but yes, TVs were like, I remember it was like $600 for the TV. And my dad was so proud to have that TV, and it was pretty awesome. But yeah, so getting back to the show here, when we would watch shows like this, like Growing Pains, what I remember the most about it was it, cause I was a little bit of a snarky teenager at this point. So I was a little bit above where the show was at for me mentally, but I understood Carol, and I really liked Carol. And one of the things I had a problem with, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more when I talk about Tracy Gold and her character here, is I had a problem with how much they came after her. Like the other characters would always come after her for her weight, for her braininess, for standing up for herself on things. And, back then as a young teenage girl, we didn't have a lot of role models to say, hey, this is how you can stand up for yourselves. The TV version of how you were to stand up for yourself is completely unrealistic, because if you were to try to do something like that don't work in the streets. You know what I mean? Like that would get your butt kicked pretty fast. So I remember I was a smart kid as well. I probably wasn't to the level like you and Carol were. Sorry, I don't know why that was a tongue twister there, but I was there. I wanted to be there. I was just hanging out with the wrong crowd at the time. So it was a little difficult for me to show my colors of who I really was, because I was afraid I'd be found out. So basically this show is about a family of 5. It starts off with a family of 5. And the show had some really great moments and some really fantastic subjects that, weren't quite talked about back in the 80s. So they did bring up some subject matter that was not really talked about to the depth that they talked about. Like they had an episode about drunk driving. And at that point in the 80s and 90s, all of us high school kids, we heard about drunk driving. We saw the gross pictures of the cars and stuff. But when you're that age, you don't think death is near. You don't have any concept of death. The way they had this, that Carol and her boyfriend were in the car and they got in an accident. And her boyfriend is Matthew Perry, by the way. She kind of lost out on that
and
one.
He looks so cute back in the day.
So cute.
So dreamy. Cute. Oh my God. So dreamy.
Yes. So anyways, she thinks everything is fine and that they have a second chance, and he's in the hospital. She comes home. And when she comes home, Mike comes out and says, hey, I just got off the phone with the hospital and your boyfriend unfortunately passed away. And Carol goes through this huge dramatic scene, which at the time, let's see, I think she was about 16, 17.
Yeah.
She's actually the same age as me. So she's actually 16, 17 in real life. So let me just preference that. The detail and the emotion she brought out to have lost a boyfriend was so wonderful. I mean, she really portrayed it very well. You felt really sorry for her. It was a take on a drunk driving message that we hadn't quite heard before or quite seen, because we were all invested with Carol and her boyfriend because he was there for a couple episodes. So the fact that happened, and it happened while they were drunk driving, was a better message than we were getting at the time. Like,
well, I remember during that time, Celeste, that the teachers would be talking to us about drinking and smoking and doing drugs.
Yeah.
I remember that scene. And I remember just bawling.
Yeah.
Just bawling because, and I'm so glad that they talked about the drunk driving and that Growing Pains, the writers had talked about such serious things going on as teenagers, right? On the challenges that we have and the fact that her boyfriend actually died. It just broke me. I remember that very well. I actually, before we came on board, I watched a couple of scenes to kind of remind me about Growing Pains. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, me
and
neither.
I saw that episode and it broke me.
Oh my goodness.
It really touched me.
Yeah, it did me too. And I specifically wanted to try to find that one. So I probably saw the same one as you, because that was the one that stuck out to me the most about that show, was that particular message. At the time, we just were not getting the right approach to teenagers about what drunk and driving was all about. We really didn't. And so that was a great message. And I'm really proud that Tracy Gold and her character was able to act that out really well and have all that happen.
She did a great scene. I was convinced. And are there any characters besides the Tracy Gold's character, Carol? Are there any other, ones that you liked, like maybe, the dad, the mom, anything that stands out in your mind that just touched you?
I love moms like Joanna Kerns. She played Maggie Seaver. And I love that sweet, safe go-to place of a mom, that very maternal instinct that she had. And she seemed like just the kindest person to go to. I don't want to like dish on my own mom here. I just, and say, but I would like to say, like, at that time, I really wanted a mom like that. I really wanted that soft place to land, and I was always seeking it. Joanna Kerns is also beautiful too. She was
she's gorgeous.
She was smart, and she is what, and she was going after her dream of being a reporter. And that's what I love. Like, that was an independence about a woman that we didn't see. We didn't see pretty moms going back to work and trying to be independent and trying to make something of herself.
Exactly.
We didn't see that type of stuff. So that was a really amazing role for her. Cause like we would see, they would have episodes with her being on the job. You would see her reporting different stuff. And if you compare this to Who's the Boss, you remember you were mentioning that earlier.
Yes.
And Who's the Boss? You only saw Tony all day. You didn't see where Angela went and worked. I don't even remember what she did for a living.
She owned an advertising firm.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There's that. But yeah, but it wasn't memorable. It was not memorable. So I think, to me, seeing Growing Pains, seeing, Maggie Seaver being this beautiful, talented mom, I think it, kind of gave us hope. Like, hey, we can have it all,
And for the 80s, I mean, seriously, it was a theme, in the 80s with that. But I really think they captured the mom's character with her going back to work. They had 3 kids. They actually had 4 kids.
Well, they had,
the little girl,
right? And we'll talk about the last kid added, but
yes.
I purposely left that out when I said that. So.
But the fact that she was a working mom was just such a great example, and she worked really hard, and she was always so sweet to her kids. I freaking love Growing Pains.
I mean,
this is too. Like, this puts a smile on my face. I love this series. It was so great.
I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Did you have a crush on Kirk Cameron?
Well, I met him and Jeremy Miller when I was about 16. I got a
at 16?
Yes. An interesting story. I actually got hold of Jeremy Miller back a couple of months ago, I think on Facebook. And we had a really nice conversation about this particular encounter.
Okay.
So, my mom used to be an esthetician, and she worked at the Marietta Hot Springs Resort in Marietta, California. Okay. And she calls my dad up and says, hey, the Growing Pains cast is here. We're having a nonprofit dance, and they're inviting people. And I have a ticket for Meredith to come and meet Kirk Cameron and Jeremy Miller. So I was very, very excited and whatnot. So
my God.
I was a very realistic kid. I wasn't impressed with any kind of celebrities. I'm like, okay. I just thought they were just like me,
Okay.
So I meet Jeremy Miller and I meet Kirk Cameron, and they were just very nice. And then they both said, do you want my picture and my autograph? And I said, why do I want your picture and autograph? That's stuck up. I was so
call them stuck up.
Yes, I said, I'm just here to say hi. I don't need your damn photograph. I was
my God.
I said that to them, and I walked back in tears to my mom, and my mom said, Meredith, what did you do? You were so rude to those 2 boys. I said, well, they wanted to give me their autograph and photograph, and I didn't ask for that. I just wanted to say hi and maybe have a dance with them. I reached out to Jeremy Miller on Facebook. He has his own catering company. And I reached out and I said, you probably don't remember me. He said, I was a young kid back then. He was like my age, maybe even a little younger. He said, our talent agent just told us that was what we were supposed to do, was give out our photos. And I said, if I have offended you in any way back at 20 million years ago, I apologize. He says, no apology. That's a funny story. I said, well, thank you so much. He says, I forgive you, Meredith. I said, that's all I've wanted for all these years. Now I can go forward.
Wait,
So
it was give you closure. Oh my God.
I felt so bad that I had, I was such a, because he wanted to give me his photo with the signature. And I just wanted to say hi.
He was just being nice.
Yeah, just be nice. Cause I didn't want his photograph, but anyway, it was a really funny thing, but I did get to see them in person. And when you meet a celebrity, you always think, God, they look so much taller on screen than they do in person. They were so tiny. I was a very tall, big girl as a 16-year-old, but I was taller than Kirk Cameron. I was way taller than Jeremy Miller.
How tall is Kirk Cameron?
I think he's maybe 5'8".
How tall are you?
I'm 5'7.5".
Oh, okay.
And I was already 5'7" at that age. So they were really small, but they were so dreamy and very nice, but I was offended. God, they gave
Well, I'm glad you were able to have that with them,
I'll never forget it. And I always ask my mom, do you remember? She says, yes, you were very upset and you were kind of mean to the poor actors because they just wanted to be nice.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh, Meredith, before I forget, you were going to tell us the word from our sponsor today.
I was. We are sponsored today by MJ Direct Placement Services, helping companies nationwide find exceptional employees, one job at a time.
Well, listen, Meredith, now one of the things you and I like to do, we really like to research our characters. And today it's been kind of fun when we're talking to the listeners out there. Meredith and I have been friends for, I think you said about around 10 years now or something.
Yeah, going on 11 years.
We tried to create a structure for this podcast, but I can already see just from us talking today, we've gone everywhere. We have gone everywhere. So we're going to try to focus on some of the research we did today and see how far we can get. So what did you find out about Kirk Cameron that we don't know about?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me just tell you, Kirk Cameron got the role because he was as goofy as the character.
Okay.
And the producers, the producers, he had a very simple line and they wanted him because he had that goofiness and kind of airheaded kind of thing. So when he was 16, that was his natural behavior that he had. So they thought he can get into that. Kirk Cameron is a very interesting guy. He's had a very interesting career. But when I did some research, because I always want to know, what is the actor's favorite episode? Did they ever have a favorite episode? And I researched.
I always wonder about that too.
Yes, because Mike always just kind of digged into his sister, Carol, always made fun of her. Carol, in one of the episodes, I think it was season 2, she wanted a nose job. She didn't like herself.
Right.
And she wanted a nose job. And Kirk Cameron's character sat her down and said, well, I think you're kind of pretty, but I can't say that to you because you're my sister, but I love you just the way you are. And it was really poignant. And he liked that because Kirk Cameron was always digging on his, on his little sister, Carol. Mike Seaver was. And so he said that was actually one of his favorite episodes where he was sensitive to his sister. So what's interesting about Kirk, 2 of Kirk's siblings also starred on the same show. We all know that his sister Candace Cameron Burr starred on A Full House as DJ Tanner. But did you know he appeared in one of the episodes as her cousin Steve in his other sister Bridget with The Full House? So they kind of, were back and forth. Kirk is an award-winning actor. Cameron, Kirk received 2 People's Choice Awards for his work on Growing Pains. He also ranked number 15 in VH1's 100 Greatest Child Stars. I thought that was very, very interesting with that. One thing with Kirk Cameron is we all know that he became a Christian when he was, I think, 17 or 18.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But he also got married very, very young. He married his co-star. I forgot her name, what her name was, but she had married very young and he married his co-star. So there's some things going on with Growing Pains and Kirk Cameron, but I think overall everybody liked Kirk. And I did some research with Growing Pains in itself. And I saw an interview with Kirk Cameron and also with Tracy Gold and also with Jeremy Miller, that they were very close. They hung out after they worked, and that, the team, you could definitely tell that they were synced together off camera. So, which really helped. But overall, Kirk Cameron, I mean, I had a magazine called Bop, which is this teenage magazine. And I had him.
Yes.
I had a picture of him on my wall along with Jeremy Miller.
Did you really?
I did. I did.
Could have had one had you accepted their offer.
I could have photo.
If
I had accepted both of their photos, I think that would be really funny to put on our website.
Sorry for the callback, but I had to get you on that one.
I also was really intrigued with Jeremy Miller. I did some research with him because I kind of had a conversation with him, and I connected with him. So he really enjoyed, they had asked him, what did you enjoy about working on Growing Pains? And he talked about when Brad Pitt was one of the guest stars, he played as one of Carol's classmates, and he said he was just so awesome to work with. And to this day, they had seen each other somewhere like 2018, and he remembered Jeremy Miller.
Oh, that's sweet.
To him.
Because really I think he was only like in just a couple episodes, like maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So Jeremy started his career very young. He was cast in one of the first McDonald's commercials, and then he began to land multiple roles in Chops in Charge, Different Strokes, Punky Brewster, to name a few. When Growing Pains stopped, Growing Pains had a reboot. They had a movie. I don't know if you remember that. I think
like a reunion type of movie or something like that.
After that, he stopped working. He went to school. He actually went to the University of Southern California, where he studied drama. But after that, he pursued his passion in cooking. So he currently is enrolled in a culinary arts program, and he has a catering company called No Small Affair. And he's a freelance chef for multiple LA-based catering companies. But he also has private, to show them, like if a couple wanted to hire him to come into their house and do some sort of cooking with them, he also does that as well.
Amazing.
He's now kind of dabbling back into acting a little bit. So he's doing a lot of indie films. He's doing some films about like marijuana stuff and just like some really, really cool things that he's got working on. So he's been working on those indie films since 2021. They haven't been released yet because they're in the process of
the
editing release. Yes. Yeah.
That's a lot.
So that's some research on him. But I think overall, with my personal experience I've had with him, I can't say anything bad about him. He's
and he was so kind to respond to you on Facebook after you're like, hey, I totally dissed you at an event as a 13-year-old girl, but hey now.
I was shocked. I was actually shocked he responded to me. So I recently responded to him on Facebook last week. And I had asked him.
That's soon.
About our podcast, about what we're doing. And he's out of town. So he's very busy. He said, but
now he doesn't know you.
Yeah, he doesn't know me. So I thought that was cool. He actually responded.
That's sweet. That's very sweet. Oh, that's cool. Well,
so Jeremy, if you're listening, please call us.
And Jeremy, if you're listening, I just want to apologize for my co-host here who completely dissed you as a 13-year-old. So I wouldn't have dissed you, but I was too old for you back then. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the characters I got to research, and I'm actually going to have and ask you to talk about Chrissy Seaver last.
I will.
Okay, because she kind of comes in last, so I think she's going to get kind of a last place here. So I hope you don't mind.
No.
I wanted to start off with Joanna Kerns because, like I mentioned earlier, Joanna Kerns was that mom we all wanted to have. She was, that pretty, independent, safe place to land. And she always seemed so understanding. Joanna Kerns was only 16 years older than Tracy Gold.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So she was still pretty young at the time. But at first, when I was looking into Joanna Kerns, I wasn't finding enough. And I'm like, why can I not find enough information about her? What's going on? And the more I dig, the more I actually found some stuff. She has an older brother and a younger brother, but she also has an older sister. Now get this, her older sister is Donna, and she is an Olympic gold medal swimmer. She won 2 gold medals in the 1964 Olympics. So Joanne had to compete against that, she had to compete against the golden child of the family. Like, how do you compete against the sister who's winning gold medals, but no, Joanne actually ended up getting her start in show business as a dancer before she turned into acting. She went to school at UCLA and majored in dance.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. And they never utilize that, that skill or that tool from her at all in the show. I mean, I think they might have had a husband and wife dancing moment, but it wasn't, an elaborate scene or anything like that.
I didn't know that.
Check this out. She ended up leaving UCLA because she saw an advertisement for a Gene Kelly production called Clown Around. And so she jumped at the chance to audition. And she ended up getting the part and just dropped out of college here in California and moved to New York. So that's how she got her start. When she got the role of Maggie, the reason why she got it was that she had really good chemistry with Alan Thicke. She went to kiss him, but he moved down just a little bit, and she ended up just doing a little peck on his nose, and it was just really cute, and everyone thought it was cute. So they just had a really cute and nice chemistry. She ended up being a successful Hollywood director after she left Growing Pains.
Really?
And I was like, wait, what? Why is that? It turned out that, back in the late 80s, early 90s, you couldn't be an actor and a director. You had to be serious as one or the other. There's a lot of stigmatism to that. And then on top of that, she's a woman. So there's a whole other thing. So she dropped out of acting for a long time to become this serious director. She has since kind of come back to acting, and she's done some movies here and there. But I grabbed some of her directing hits, and she did stuff like Mad About You.
She did?
Yes, back in the 90s.
Wow.
The Goldbergs. She's directed a couple episodes of The Goldbergs. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. She's done a couple episodes there. Jane the Virgin, Nashville, and her most recent is Million Little Things. The list that she has for directing it's huge, absolutely huge. And I was just so impressed. And she does still act here and there, but she focuses on directing a lot more. So I was just amazed. She has an Instagram account. She looks wonderful. I'm like,
I'll have to check her out. I haven't checked her out.
You should. Yeah, she looks just like you want to remember her as, just very sweet, My other favorite character, like we were talking about this earlier, is Carol Seaver, which is Tracy Gold. A couple things about Tracy Gold, like she had been acting since she was a little bit younger. She was on a couple different commercials and stuff, but she was not originally cast for this role of Carol. In fact, they had another actor. Her name was Elizabeth Ward, and she played the role in the pilot. So if you see the original pilot, you'll see some other girl acting crazy. You're like, who is this
I'll
girl?
have to check that out. Is that on YouTube?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I was able to find it because I was like, oh, who is she? And I actually almost didn't mention the actress's name because I don't remember this actress from that time. She wasn't somebody who was popular, but she kind of was, and I didn't realize it. Elizabeth Ward played on another movie that Tracy and her were on. Tracy ended up getting the part of Carol because Elizabeth Ward was not well received by the audience. So they replaced her with Tracy. Yeah. So And that's interesting. Like when they say the actress was not well received by the audiences, I never knew what they meant by that. What audience goes to a TV sitcom and go, oh, yeah, that girl actress, nah, I don't like her. I'm not going to clap. Like, what was that about? So whatever that reason is, that's why Tracy Gold got the part. What I was mentioning earlier about Tracy's performance as a 16-year-old dealing with the death of her boyfriend. And then there was another one you mentioned about the nose job too. They gave Tracy Gold very serious parts. They really did. And she did. She didn't get any credit. And I didn't see any awards that she won or anything like that. Maybe she did and I didn't find it, but I don't show any awards for her.
I couldn't find anything either on her with any awards because she was serious. I mean, it was spectacular performance, especially with the Matthew Perry.
Oh, absolutely.
When he passed away.
Even the nose job episode. I mean, they gave her some other things too, but all the serious issues went to Tracy because she even did an episode about, and which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, about like eating disorders. So she did an episode about that too, while she's going through one, by the way.
Amazing.
So they always gave, for some reason, Tracy Gold the serious roles, but they never gave her any credit. In fact, Kirk Cameron was so popular because he was a hunky young teenager kid that all the girls went crazy for him. And Tracy is just kind of left in the dust, and so's Jeremy Miller. They were nothing compared to Mike Seaver, who was this cute, jokesy, well-liked kid. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I liked about Tracy too was that to date, I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you some good news about it. To date, she's doing very well. She has a couple kids. She's been married this whole time. She's doing really well. But back the last 2 seasons of Growing Pains, she experienced a lot of eating disorders. In fact, she was not only anorexic, but she was also bulimic at some point. And back in the 80s, we did not talk about eating disorders, even though eating disorders have been around for a very, very long time. And it just never was really talked about. So the unfortunate thing was that Tracy not only was outed by all the tabloids and stuff like that, but she was immediately removed from the set. The thing that got me upset about learning more about this, because I do remember the scandal about it. She was one of the first celebrities ever to be outed. And she was 16. Oh my God. Can you imagine being that young?
I can't imagine.
And being outed for something, such a disorder like that and trying to gain control of yourself and trying to navigate through life. Well, what happened was it was after a 1988 break from the show. Like, I think it was like a holiday break or something like that. What happened was she gained a little weight. And it says all over online, it says the scripts included fat jokes about her character. The scripts didn't suddenly include that. That's the writers. Okay. The writers included that, and they should be responsible because at the time she was only 5'3" and 133 pounds. That's still not overweight for her size. And the problem I had was every character on the show made fun of her, and you would think her father, who's supposed to be a psychiatrist, would have put an end to that bullying. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. It was encouraged that the brothers made fun of her, that the friends, that people at school, and everybody made a fat joke. What ended up happening is that she went from 133 pounds to a horrific all-time low of 80 pounds. She was 80 pounds and was hospitalized because when she came back on set, the producers saw that she looked skeletal and they wanted her to get help. But here's the thing. They were the cause. They were the cause of this.
Those bastards.
They were. And they didn't know that she had been battling an eating disorder since the age of 11. Oh my God. What an 11-year-old is struggling with this. That just tells you so much about who she is, like what problems she was having. And the fact that they were making all these fat jokes about a young teenager, even back in the 80s like that, it just horrifies me. Because, no young girl, whether it was a character or not, should be handling that. Still, there's a certain responsibility from the writers that should have stepped back and said, hey, this is a young girl. maybe we shouldn't be making fun of her weight, you know? And also the whole nose job episode too. It's like, what?
She was during that episode, she wanted to change herself. And it was really sad, but you know, Mike came in and said, I think, you know, you're beautiful. I think out of all of those episodes, that's the only episode the writers put that Mike was nice to her.
Yeah.
Said something pretty about her.
He wasn't any other episode.
He was very jerky to her.
Yeah. He was very, definitely douchey. So again, as I mentioned before at the start, the good news is she's totally great now. I'm assuming based on all the interviews I see, she looks healthy. She's a mom, you know, she's a wife. She's had some other incidences in life that has happened to her, but she's still acting. And she still goes out of her way to be nice to people and still stay in contact with her previous castmates. So wonderful. I wanted to move on about Alan Thicke, okay, who's Dr. Jason Seaver. So let me just say something that I completely forgot about. Okay, so I'm much older now than I was when I watched that show. And holy smokes, was Alan Thicke gorgeous. Holy moly, holy. I was catching up on some of the video. I'm like, wow, he was a fox, you know. If any of our listeners don't know who Alan Thicke is, he's Robin Thicke's dad. Okay. And if you know Robin, you should probably know who Robin Thicke is.
And they look alike in a lot of ways.
Not only that, but they sound identical.
And
that creeps me out, but like I get excited about. Like I've been an Alan Thicke fan for a very, very long time. And the great thing about Alan Thicke is he started off as a singer, composer, and writer for songs. And he wrote a lot of TV theme songs like The Facts of Life, Different Strokes. He even sang in Different Strokes. I didn't know that one actually. And The Joker's Wild, which was a game show back then, just to name a few. He's done a lot more other shows, but I wanted to grab the shows that I've heard of. The other shows, I apologize, I've never heard of them. I figured if I've never heard of them, you probably haven't heard of them. So anyways, but nonetheless, he's done a bunch of other shows. He did have his own show called Thicke of the Night, Thicke on a play of his last name. And that was a late night talk show, but it didn't last like barely a year, you know. But he had some famous comedians that were frequent guests on his show, like Gilbert Gottfried and Arsenio Hall.
Wow.
So like just knowing that he had that connection with them was really cool. I kind of like knowing that. So now here's the thing that I found interesting, because like when you see Alan Thicke in this role in Growing Pains, you can't see any other dad possibly doing this role. But did you know Bruce Willis was up for the same role?
I didn't know that.
Yes, but Bruce Willis took the role in the TV show Moonlighting instead. I think Bruce Willis didn't want to be a dad on TV yet. He wanted to be like that sexy detective character on Moonlighting. Alan was married 3 times, and I'm going to mention his first wife, who is, I should say, Gloria Loring. And the reason why I wanted to mention her is because she sang the song for The Facts of Life. She is that voice.
Out.
Yeah, you take the good, you take the bad. She is that voice. She sang a lot of other theme songs with Alan, but that's the one she is most famous for. And she's also extremely famous for being on Days of Our Lives for like decades. So yeah, she is a wonderful actress. You're not going to believe this. This is kind of like a little bit of gossip about Alan Thicke that I kind of didn't know. Anyways, so while Alan was on Growing Pains, he was named Father of the Year by the Father's Day Council, of Los Angeles, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. So they named him Father of the Year, right? Are you going along with me? That is so awesome. But here's the kicker, Meredith. Are you ready for this?
I'm listening.
So we know he was 40 years old, right? During this time, he decided he would start dating actress Christy Swanson, who was 17 at the time.
Oh my.
And they were engaged 2 years later.
When she was 19 and 19. He was 42.
Yeah. So they clearly did not get married, but they met when she was only 16 years old.
That is some gossip.
And he was named Father of the Year.
That is interesting.
Like, what? Like, who's your daddy now?
Daddy issues, what?
Like, what? Exactly. Like, I'm like, what? He's dating someone who's the same age as the kids he's fathering on the show. Like, what? Okay. Here's your award, Alan Thicke. You've got it. Like,
oh my God.
So I have to admit one thing about Alan Thicke. Other reason why I loved him so much is because he was part of one of my favorite TV shows, How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you ever seen that show.
I have. It's one of my favorite shows, actually.
Well, he is always around my favorite premise of the show, which is Robin Sparkles. So anytime they have Alan Thicke, it's normally about Robin Sparkles, and I always love it both. And one of my favorite scenes is when the character Barney, which is Neil Patrick Harris, goes and tries to beat up Alan Thicke, but Alan Thicke ends up beating him up and is eating a donut at the same time. So that's always one of my favorite scenes, and I just love it. So,
I love that scene too.
So that being said, the reason why I wanted to add Chrissy to the very end, and I apologize because I don't know what you're going to say ahead of time, or
I want to listen to what you have to say about.
But the reason why I wanted you to add Chrissy at the very end is because there's a phenomenon called the Oliver theory. Okay. And if you don't know what the Oliver theory is in acting or in the show business, that's when it refers to the TV show, The Brady Bunch. And the Brady Bunch, all the kids started getting older and they lost their cuteness and their adorableness. I think Cindy lost her lisp at that point. And they had to bring in another adorable kid. So they bring in Cousin Oliver, who is just adorable and cute, but the show's already on its way out the door. Okay.
Exactly.
So it's called the Oliver theory. And Chrissy was easily the Oliver theory. And that's what it's referred to. So Meredith, the floor is yours. Go ahead and talk about Chrissy Seaver.
Well, so her name is Ashley Johnson, which is my last name. She was 6 years old when she started. It was her very first show she ever worked on.
Okay.
She was very close to Alan Thicke because it was basically her first TV dad. They had a special bond with that. She's now 35 and
oh my God.
She gets recognized.
Wait, how old are we? Oh
okay.
my God, she's 35.
Pushing 50. Well, I mean, you're past 50, but I'm pushing 50.
No, she can't be 35 if we're 36, right? Look, the math doesn't add up here, Meredith.
She's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. She's a natural redhead. She's a natural redhead. Beautiful, but she cannot get away from growing pains. She's been on Avengers. She's actually a voiceover actor. Okay. Are you familiar with that?
I did not know that. I know she's been active.
Heavy. Yeah. She's got a really great voice, kind of that raspy voice, but she does. Her voice acting career began in 1996. She did an animated television adaptation of Jumanji. And in her teen years and in her 20s, she did voice acting for shows like Recess, Lloyd in Space, and Ben 10.
Oh, wow.
And she does heavy voiceovers, get this, for video games.
Oh, yeah. Those are rough. Okay. I've done voiceover for video games.
So I thought there might be some similar, things with you and her. With that, but the thing that she really loved about working on Growing Pains is that she got to work with all of Alan Thicke and all of the major characters. She really learned a lot, but she really loved working with Alan, she said. But the thing that she can't stand, but she loves, is she can't get away from Growing Pains. She will be out and about. She lives in Southern California. Yeah. She'll be out and about and people will say, hey, you're that little girl from Growing Pains. And she's going, wait a minute, I've done so much more. For time's sake, I mean, I can go on and on, but bottom line is she's still working. She's healthy.
Oh, good.
She's doing a lot of voiceovers and she's kind of a techie person. Yes.
Yes.
She's very techie. She loves video games and she loves doing the voiceover acting.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, listen, I wanted to tell you, I wrote a list down of some of the major stars here.
I did too.
Oh, did you? So we talked earlier that there was Matthew Perry and Candace Cameron, which is Kirk's sister, Heather Graham, but she only said like hello. And then Dennis Haysbert. So if you don't know who Dennis Haysbert, he's that guy who does all those Allstate commercials, who's got that very, very deep voice. That's Dennis Haysbert. Courtney Thorne Smith, and then Jenny Garth. And there's like a whole handful of other ones. Now there's another one that's like the top one, and Leonardo DiCaprio. The thing that I was really upset about when I was researching this is that when you click on Growing Pains, it shows that Leonardo, does he go by Leonardo or am I
think he goes by Leo.
Leo. Okay. So the thing about Leo is that they have him as part of like the main characters. I think that's discouraging because that's not true. He was only in 24 episodes. And actually the character that played Boner was in 25. So I think Boner, which was one of Mike's friends, should have had a higher credit than Leo.
Exactly.
But I feel like that's not fair. Just because Leo is a top celebrity, it doesn't mean he deserves that top credit in that show. That's absolutely not fair. There's plenty of other actors in that show that deserved better credit than that. All of them kind of did not like Leonardo DiCaprio. So
why didn't they like him?
Well, the guys kind of made some comments like he was just difficult to work with. So I guess maybe he was being a little diva back then. I don't know.
So he's a diva now named diva back then.
Yeah. And just so you know, if we ever have an episode about actors we hate, Leonardo DiCaprio is like one of my top 3. I don't like him at all. I'm sorry. I doubt if I would ever work with him. I'm not that famous of an actress, so I'll just take my losses now. But yeah, I don't know. It's another story for another time.
Isn't it weird how Growing Pains, how they, with Leo being so, he was even famous when he was little.
Yeah.
And they put him in as if he was in the show from the very beginning, when I think they should have put Boner in. I mean, he was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Mike Seaver's best friend, who was kind of gross, but he was really funny, that actor.
Yes.
And I thought he did a great job. They should have put him in there, but because Leo, they put him in, I think in the last 2 years. With that. So it's very interesting what they were thinking at that time.
Yeah. I think they just wanted someone a little closer to Mike's age. I think Boner was closer to Mike's age rather than, anyone else. But let's talk about Boner for just one second. Okay. So I found this little clip and I was like, what is with this clip? Why is it being showed? And then when I looked at the reasoning behind it, I was so surprised. It was a little insert and it said, in one episode, Mike talks about the confusion over Russian playwright Chekhov, saying he thought Chekhov was the Russian guy on Star Trek who played Mike's best friend Boner on the series. He was the son of Walter Cohen, who played Chekhov on Star Trek. So Boner is Chekhov's son from Star Trek.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when they made this little joke of the Russian guy, I thought he was the Russian guy on Star Trek. That's a joke towards Andrew, who was playing Boner, and his father was Chekhov on Star Trek. And so I thought that little information was just amazing. Just before we wrap up here, I just wanted to say one interesting little fact that I found was that the family's last name was Seaver, and they had neighbors named Koosman. So Tom Seaver and Jerry Koosman were teammates on the New York Mets during the 1960s and 1970s. This show was to be taking place on Long Island. So it is assumed and it's likely that the creators were huge Mets fans.
No way.
You know that.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. You did such great research on your actors in Growing Pains.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate the information. I feel like, gosh, I just, learned a little bit more about Growing Pains, one of my absolutely favorite 80s show. I'm so glad we had this conversation to talk about the actors and, the show in itself and some little tidbits that I didn't know. I learned so much today. So
I did too.
You so much.
Thank you. And I always appreciate the point of view that you come from, which is, someone who's not really in the business, who looks at this just from kind of like an emotional standpoint, like how it made you feel, what you were going through, some of your experiences. Because at this point, like as an actor myself, I still look back at these shows on those acting experiences. So I kind of appreciate our whole yin and yang here when we talk about different actors. And this is why we started this podcast, is because this is the type of relationship we do have.
I appreciate that. And, it's so great because I've got a different perspective than, because you're in the business and I'm not, but I'm still from an emotional point of view on how I feel. And did the writers, did they do a good job making me feel the way I'm supposed to be feeling? Much like when Carol lost her boyfriend, and I cried over that, and I still cried. So I had the writers did a great job. They made me cry. She did a great job convincing me that she was very upset. And I love it that from your point of view, from an acting point of view, that, what the writers go through and what the actors are going through during that time, and the background of what's going on with that TV show or any kind of TV show. So I really appreciate your perspective on things. I learned a lot from you, my friend.
I learned a lot from you, my friend. Well, I just wanted to thank any of our listeners that this has been a great show. Thank you for listening. And this has been Ladies on a Roll.